Hello, I'm Alison Fennell, the pottering artist, and today we're going to paint this gorgeous frog. If you want the outline or the reference photo, click the link in the description below the video. These are the brushes I'm going to use. I've got 3 flat synthetic watercolour brushes. One is a size 10, that's about an inch. Then one is a size 4, that's about half an inch. And one is a size 2, that's about 1/4 of an inch. Don't worry if you haven't got the exact size. Then I've got 4 watercolour round brushes, they're all synthetic as well. I've got a size 0, then a size 0, then I've got a 2, then I've got a 3, and I've got a 4. I've just got a couple of small round brushes and the flats. The paper I'm using is Fabriano Artistico 100% cotton rag paper. It's £90 in weight, that's 200 GSM, and it's cold pressed. But you can use any watercolour paper you like, you'll just get a different look. I would say try and use 100% cotton rag because it's the best surface for watercolours. I've stretched my paper overnight on a piece of plywood board, and as you can see there are the layers of ply. This board is 9mm and I use brown gummed tape to tape the paper down once I've soaked it. There's a link in the description for my video on how to soak paper and stretch it in the traditional way, so if you want to use that, have a look at that video. You can also use a watercolour block, which is just a block of paper which has been glued all round. That gives you some protection against the sort of peeking and troughing and the buckling, but the best thing to do is to stretch it. The colours I'm going to use are all Winsor & Newton Artist Quality watercolour tube paints. If you haven't got the exact colours, just see if you've got as close as you can to these. I'm going to use Permanent Sap Green, Raw Umber, Aureolin, which is a nice pale yellow, Burnt Umber, French Ultramarine Blue, or Ultramarine Blue or French Ultramarine, and then Alizarin Crimson or Permanent Alizarin Crimson. But as I say, get anything that's close to this and you'll be fine. Again, I put all the details in the description to this, okay? Okay, so let's get going with this frog. First of all, I'm going to wet a 1/2 inch size brush, 1/2 inch flat brush, and I'm going to moisten the entire rectangle. I've taped it off with washi tape, this tape here, just to give myself a nice crisp border to work to, and when I finish the frog I'll peel it away and have a nice crisp white edge. I also like to have a boundary to work to, so that's why I've taped it off. Plus it protects my gum tape from getting too much water under there, and so acts as an extra sort of belt and brace, as an extra seal. Right, I'm going to add some colour now, so I'll add some of that Aureolin, a little bit of that permanent sap green. That's a bit too much actually, sap green. Then I'm going to dull that down with a little bit of raw umber. Paint some, I want to put some in the background and some over the frog. I'm not going to do all under his chin because that's a softer sort of grey, mauve, sort of greyed purple colour. So I'm just going to pop that in loosely, like that. And I'm going to leave that dry until it's bone dry. You can hair dry it if you want to. It does dull the colour a little bit though, so I'm going to hair dry it for this tutorial. See you in the next clip. Okay, it's bone dry now, so it's been about 15 minutes or so. I gave it a hair dry and then I and I weighted as well. So what I'm going to do now is get an extra brush. This is a size 10 round watercolour brush. I'm going to moisten that, and I'm going to carefully re-wet the whole of the inside of the frog shape. So this is where we start to pull the frog out of the background. And as you can see, I'm laying my brush as low and as parallel to the paper as I can, so that the water just glides on. I don't want to be stroking it on too heavily or scrubbing it on. Just want to lay this veil of water onto the frog to re-moisten it. There, can you see now? That's the moisture I've got on the frog, okay? In fact, I'll put a little bit more in that corner there. Right, now we can go back in and start adding some more green. So I'm going to pick up some more permanent sap green, some more aureolin. Actually, I should have added the aureolin first. It's best to put the palest colours on the palette first, alright, and then add the darker colours in. A little bit of raw umber in there as well, and maybe a speck of French ultramarine blue, little tiny bit, just small increment. I'm going to add this green now. I'm looking at my frog here. Add a darker green. On his back. Then around his mouth there's a little bit of a highlight there, but it's darker there and darker there and darker around the sort of front of it. So I'm going to try and put those areas in. They'll bleed a little bit, won't be 100% accurate, but I just want to get the feel of that, of those shapes, of those darker tones. Let's go over there. Right, now in this area here we've got this sort of a greyed sort of mauve colour, so I'm picking up some alizarin crimson, some French ultramarine blue, small amounts. So sort of dulled violet, and now add a little bit of the green, that sap green mix, and that should give us that under the throat colour. There. And then out of that, with a thirsty brush, which is a brush I wet and then I've dried on my cloth, I'm going to lift out that highlight that I just showed you. Press the brush in and lift it out, just along the ridge of his lip there. And there's a bit of a highlight under the eye there, and it's a bit paler right there. And there's a little curve of light as well there. So thirsty brush, press it in and lift out. Right, with a very small brush now, this is a size 4, so I'm going to moisten that brush, I've moistened it and I've actually wiped it in the cloth. So I'm going to pick up some more of that alizarin crimson, stronger this time, some more raw umber, and then a speck of permanent sap green, and the paper now, if you can see it, it's got a tiny bit of moisture in there. Can you see? It's a very tiny bit. And as I'm putting this mark on, it's very fuzzy. It's fuzzy. It's a soft edge, as you can see. Okay. And then I'm going to drop in this brown as well around the eye. And these dark markings that come down from the eye. There's a sort of semicircle shape there. It's unusual patterning on the frog's folds of his skin. Put a bit more in the nostril there. There's a little sort of an arc above the eyelid as well there. I'll bleed some of that brown down into the eye. So a little bit more of this brown in the corner of the mouth and down, edging some of the other folds of the skin. And then I'm adding a little bit of water to this mix. I'm putting a darker band immediately under the mouth. And now I'm going to do some speckles to suggest his textured speckles on his throat. This is still slightly damp paper, very slightly damp paper. Slightly moist paper, I should say, sorry. Right, again with a thirsty brush, which is a brush that I've moistened and I've wiped the water out of it. I'm going to again rub in, take some colour out of that highlight there, and a little bit just behind that curve of the eye, just to sort of push that eye, sort of the eye socket, well not socket really, but it's a shape where the eyeball is held, and I want to carve that out. Then there's a few little highlights in these folds of skin, so I'm just wiping them out each time I'm wiping some colour out. I'm rinsing my brush in my pot and then drying it on my cloth again. So I've got a nice eraser, and along his nose there's a bit of a highlight above that brown bit, and then all along his lip line there's a very pale area, isn't there? And there's a pale ridge under that eye. So let's get those out now. So with a very thirsty brush, wipe out some of that green finely along, and then taper it away, and then under the eye socket, under that bit of brown, In fact, let's go for the smaller brush now. Let's go for the 1/4 inch one that I asked you to get. So moisten it and dry it, and then you can use it like this, look, to keep moistening and drying to lift out that lovely white highlight under the bottom of the eye. Okay, so starting to get a bit of foam on this frog now. I'm going back into this area because with a thirsty brush, and wiping out, rinse and wipe, wipe out some white to get this area here. Then let's have a highlight there as well, because that's very pale, isn't it? And pay attention to these little white lines. So let's go, there's some more there. You've got to work quickly because right now the paper is still drying, okay? So it's still going to give you some paint back. It's not bone dry yet. Let's have a little bit of paint out of there, just to give us these folds, these old squidgy folds that the frog has got in his skin. And it's a bit of a highlight under this dull brownish area. Rinse and wipe your brush each time. So now instead of having a flat colour of green and this dulled sort of very soft brown, we've got those colours plus these lifted out highlights, which are nice and subtle. Just constantly rinsing your brush, wiping your brush on your cloth, and then rubbing out some colour on the painting. Okay, so I think it's starting to take a bit of form now. Okay, we're getting there now. Right, so I'm going to dry that entirely. Leave it sort of at least half an hour, or you can hair dry it very gently. Okay, the frog is bone dry again now. So I'm going to start to get his gorgeous eye in. So I'm using a size 2 round brush, and I'm going to paint the inside of his eye with some raw umber, just some pale raw umber, and a speck of aureolin. Sorry, I should have done the aureolin first. Mix your pale colours first and then darker colours on top, sorry. So aureolin and a bit of that raw umber. And I'm going to paint the whole of the eye shape now. In this colour. Let me zoom in on that. Oops. So that's what I've got at the moment. Now into that I'm going to pick up a little bit of burnt umber, and speckle this all over. Because frogs, it looks like gold, doesn't it? That sort of shiny nature of their eyes. It sort of looks like a goldy, shiny effect. So to try and mimic that without reaching for a tube of gold acrylic paint, and we're going to try and replicate it using this So I'm just speckling on that burnt umber mixed in with a little bit of the aureolin and the raw umber. So I've got that effect now, okay? So I'll do it a little bit darker here, a little bit more speckled. Because as you look at the eye, it's lighter and specklier on the left, and it's more or less all into a mush on the right. There's a bit of a bar of paleness there as well. So I'm just going to keep on going with the dark over on the right hand side, because that'll give us the idea of the curve of the eye changing, and it's darker nearer the rim, you know, where it sits in the round support of the eye. Right, so already we got a bit of contrast. Of me, this is a bit darker on the right, in the right hand area. Okay, now I'm going to push the darks now a lot, just to see where I am with this eye. So I'm going to pick up the burnt umber. It's quite a strong blob of that, and then let me zoom out and get my French ultramarine blue as well. Yeah, so some French ultramarine blue into that gives us a little tiny blob of water, a little tiny droplet of water on the palette. So that's very dark. Now that's our black, really. So let's get this oval shape. I'm going to add a bit more French ultramarine blue and a bit more burnt umber. And add the nostril there as well. And there's a very dark area of the eye. And then it comes out, splurges out. And there's that half circle shape again, with a few wiggles on the top area where it's following the folds of his skin. It thickens and thins, so I'm just following this pattern down. Just take this slightly irregular and up and over very finely. Was very fine at the top. And then, as I say, it spills out then. There's a little breakaway part just in front of the eye there. This is quite dark. And I'm going to continue now to add some more of this dark burnt umber round the base of the eye, just letting it spill over, just to bed it in a little bit more with these tiny little speckles. Just a few at the top left as well, not too many. Just want to break up that perfect curve that I painted on, because it's slightly broken in nature as well. So just a few more speckles. Okay, so that's how it's looking now. Then I'm taking this same dark colour and I'm going to paint a very fine line of it in the middle of the first pale line I did for his mouth. I'm making it a little bit irregular, a little bit wiggly. Then it tapers away to a very fine line. And then there's a little bit of a curve there where it follows sort of the patterning of where the paler frog skin meets the green sort of frog skin. It spills out there a bit under the eye there, and it blends up into an arc, into a fold above the eye here. So again, a little bit of a wiggly line, and then taper it away to nothing. I'm going to mix my brush in a little bit of soft green and paint that around the nostril there, and then blend it into this dark brown. Then just smudge some of this softer green under the eye, under the main eye curve, like that. So we've given the eye another setting, you know, another layer of folded skin. I'm going to pick up some more of this soft green. And place this and then taper it away, and add a wider passage of it, still tapering away towards the right, towards the left. This part of the nose is going out of the sun, so it's going to be darker, so I'm going to paint that darker and then drag and use dry brush some more dry brush, just blend that darker green. This brush is almost, you know, dry as a bone, just really scumbling it. Pick up some more of that soft dulled green, and I'm holding the brush quite parallel to the paper, and again I'm just using this scratchy scumbling technique to add a bit of texture under those brown bits there, under those brown markings. And definitely I want to add some under his mouth. Now I've moistened this tiny size 2 brush, and it's now a moist brush, and that green I've just scumbled on there, I'm going to rapidly soften in to lose its edginess under that shadow area there. Then into that I'm going to paint some of that brown with a little bit of alizarin crimson. and get that stronger shadow. Added in. That shadow comes down a little bit there as well, and blends in with these wiggly green folds. And again, I'm going to take this sort of rounded, bobbly, speckly idea by just doing like circular motions. There. Zoom in to show that. Okay. Zoom out a bit. And then I'm going to pick up some burnt umber, some French ultramarine blue. It's a very dark brown, and drop it right in the corner there. And I'm going to re-darken the darkest part of the eye. And reinforce the mouth a bit more. And then take some of these speckles out from this corner, just to reinforce those paler areas and to give it that warty feel. And some wrinkles and some folds. Then some more darker brown green. Around the eye there and behind the top of the lid, and brush it into this brown. And just dissolve some of this brown a little bit, and then let's have some maybe some little breakaway folds. And there's a darker curve under that nostril there. A little bit more of the soft green to make some of these pouchy areas look a little bit more rounded. So I'm going to soften that away, and drop in some brown green again right under there to give us that sort of folded skin feel. This right by the eye is a little bit hard here, so I'm just going to paint into it with this slightly moist small brush and just blend it away. As I'm looking at this now, this is a bit too strong, so I'm taking my little 1/4 inch brush, moistening it, give it a good flick, and I'm going to wipe that join that's happening away. It looks a bit less aggressive now. Then soften some of that. Right, with a big, this is the inch flat brush, I'm going to pick up some alizarin crimson, some permanent sap green to make a dulled green grey, and I want to paint that coming up from this bottom right hand corner up into the frog. So I'm losing some of that strong green. Now I've just rinsed that inch brush, rinsed it really well, and I flicked it hard, and then I'm going to brush down over those hard edges that I just left with that dark colour and blend them in. Right, let's zoom in now on this frog. Okay, so that's what's happening at the moment. I feel I got a few feelings of sort of like puckered, you know, froggy skin there. I'd like to do some more work in his eye now, so I'll just zoom in on this a bit more. Right, in order to get this real shine in the eye now, okay, I did forget to mention, sorry, that you need to have a little bit of either white opaque watercolour or some white gouache for this next bit. So what I'm going to do now is pick up some white, bear with me. Actually, before I do the eye, I just want to do one more thing. I'm going to pick up some very strong French ultramarine blue, some permanent sap green, and a little bit of alizarin crimson. And I want to put that in this area here. I feel I want to darken that down a bit more. Make him curve a little bit more. Give him a bit more contrast. And once again, I'm going to rinse my brush, flick it, and moisten over that dark passage I just added so that it blends in a bit more softly. Right, I've got a tube of designer gouache now. This is permanent white. You can use any white. I'm just going to put some on my palette so I've got it handy to do the eye work. Right, so to do the eye work now, I got my small brush. I'm going to pick up some of this gouache. I'll get this on screen for you. I'm just going to blend it into the brush so it's evenly in there. And I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of aureolin. See? So this makes the aureolin slightly opaque. Well, it makes it opaque, not slightly, it makes it opaque. So now I'm going to move in and start putting this very opaque yellow, pale yellow in the eye, a few specks here and there. I'm looking at my photograph. I'm looking at the little chinks of yellow that are around the black iris and just trying to follow those as best I can. Let me zoom in a bit more. can't go in any closer than that, okay? So add those, and then there's a bit of pale work that we can take over onto the nose as well. Around the nostril there, there's a sort of shine. And it's good to take some of this opaque white right out, you know, so that it's not just in the eye, so that you've got an element of repetition, which is one of the elements of design, repetition, to not have something in one place only in the painting, to have it somewhere else as well. So I'm adding a bit more yellow to my white opaque. Let's go back into the eye now and do that very pale area there. And there's a few little scampers of yellow above the eye, and there's a bit there as well, the bottom lid. Where this light is catching the frog's eye. And all these little sparkles, you know, make him come to life. Trying to make the application quite, you know, irregular, so it's not too set. Not too perfect. Let's zoom out. Alright. We could put a little bit of this. I'm going to hold my brush sort of like this, quite parallel. We could put a little bit of it on the right on the edge of his mouth there. We're catching a bit of the light. Yeah, it's coming now. I mean, I know this is cheating a little bit because this is gouache and we're using gouache on top of watercolour, but I just felt like having a bit of fun today with this, and there's not too much of this because I don't want it to become too slick and too stylised. Just want a bit of texture on his skin there, and again a little bit of the echo of it under his throat. Again. Right, now the last thing we want to do is we want to add a bit of, can you see it is, that is blue. That white bit actually that's sticking in the middle of the black iris is actually a blue colour. So we'll do that. We'll pick up a little bit of opaque white and a little bit of French ultramarine blue. That's all you need. Can you see that? And we're going to paint that onto the black iris. I'm maybe going to make it a little bit bluer, because when it dries it won't be so blue. Let me zoom in on that, sorry. And then hopefully, you know, we're getting this glassy look because the blue in his eye is showing us, is telling us that there's sky above, and it makes it feel all the more like he's out in the light, you know, out inside, outside. A touch of it there and a touch of it there. Okay. Right. So let's zoom out now. Okay, so that's how he's looking at the moment. What I'm going to do is with a slightly moist, very slightly moist size 4 brush, I'm going to just touch in to the edge of that opaque white because it bleeds very quickly. And then I'm going to add some more burnt umber and French ultramarine blue to give me some extra strong dark in this iris one more time. And as you can see, that's really put a bit of ping into the eye now, and I put an extra bit of that dark shadow into the nostril curve where it's out of the light. And then finally, let's add some very strong black arcs here and there in the eye, tapering them very finely away. These are the final dark accents that we save right for the end of the painting, that kick all our soft work sharply into touch, right? And I'm doing these extra dark accents on top of the softer, darker areas, so they sort of sit in a margin of already darkened paper and paint. And I'm even going to take some of this dark and do some speckles coming out of the right hand side of that eye. And this will hopefully give the eye another layer again. So I'm straddling the eye like this. I'm getting some of that really dark brown black, and I'm going into the eye, outside the eye, in, out, in, out, in, out, so that I'm bedding the eye in and losing some of the edge of the eye with these speckles. And because I'm juxtaposing these very dark speckles amongst some of the earlier lights, hopefully we're getting that lovely look of, you know, copper or bronze or gold that's in the frog's eye. Right, I want to do one more thing before I'm going to stop. That dark again, I want to pop some more in this crevice here and make some more of it. And just maybe emphasize the sort of little kinks and movements in his mouth, just to give his mouth a bit more character then. And a few little darks there, so that he really comes alive. And these little black accents, they look very, very dark now, but when they dry they'll be darker. And what I will do is I've moistened my brush again, I've flicked it, and I'm just going to gently waft my brush, touch into it very gently, just to soften and dissolve by a tiny fraction those marks I've made, just to bed them in, a little bit here, a little bit there, so that there's nothing jarring with my eye. And I'm going to stop there before I blow the whole lot. Right, so that's how he's looking at the moment. Okay, some quick final touches. I'm going to moisten my inch brush again, dry it in my flannel, and I'm going to bring out these bulgy bits a bit more. So to bring them out, I've got to lift out a highlight so that they look like they're catching the sun because they're bulging outwards. So each time I'm lifting out some colour, I'm rinsing my brush, working away, wiping out some colour. Let's do more on this one because this one's really a nice curved shape anyway. Because you've only got to say bulge in a couple of places and your eye reads bulge elsewhere. Alright? This, I'll try and have a little bulge over here on his back. There, that's a nice little fold. Maybe another one. Wipe away and then taper it away so it's not too sudden. Right, and I think I'm going to say that's it. No, one more thing. We need a tiny speck of pure white gouache now to drop into the eye there and there, and maybe one or two tiny speckles in that bar. That's it. That's enough. Oh, see, I've put too much white on the nose. Quick. So to rescue that, I'll just get my brush, a thirsty brush, soak it up, wipe it in my towel, soak it up, wipe it in my towel, soak it up, knock it back so it's not so obvious. And seriously now, I'll put my brush down before I ruin it all. So let's go back, just see that eye, the eye again. Right, so that's how he's looking from far away, because you do need to step back from your painting and see how it's looking. Now as you come closer, is anything jarring with my eye? And yes, that the work on the nose I don't like it, so I'm going to moisten my tiny little size 3 brush, flicked it, and now I'm just going to go over things and fudge them. I call this fudging, where I just soften anything that's jumping out at my eye that I don't like. A little bit in there. He's got a nice he's got a gentle eye. He's got a nice gentle expression. So love. Okay, frog, that's it now. So I'll just zoom in one more time so you can see the eye work a bit more. Let me hold it in a different light for you. So you can see those. We created the idea of gold by using aureolin, some raw umber. Then we dried that, then we added some darker brown and some more different speckles. So we built it up. Okay. So if you've enjoyed this, great. And there's a little trailer following about my other online courses I've got. I've got some longer courses if you want to join me, if you like my teaching style. You will come on in leaps and bounds. I've got a lovely course called Fanning the Flames of Fall, and it's for complete watercolour beginners. And I take you through everything so that you can be a self-teaching watercolour artist at the end of the course, and you can carry on learning at home. And I do all my videos in real time so you can see exactly what I do and how long it takes to dry and everything. Okay, so there's the frog without the tape on. I'm Alison Fennell, a pottering artist. Thanks for watching.